And so, what an auspicious day. Welcome, Kelly. We actually just messaged each other this morning or afternoon and realized, oh, it's actually equinox. So, for the lovely Kelly, it's the spring equinox in the Northern Hemisphere. And I'm all rugged up today because it's the autumn equinox here in the Southern Hemisphere, and it is feeling a little cool outside. It is, I don't know, like maybe 10 degrees. So, how is it over there, Kelly? You said it was warm
Yeah,
this morning,
it's
was
like
it?
almost 70 degrees or something like that here.
Yeah,
This is a
wonderful.
perfect spring. hmm Really nice. Sunny, no clouds, gorgeous out right now.
Yeah, and
Beautiful.
also just wonderful for that shifting energy time, right? Like that time where really it's, I don't know
Mhm.
if we call it a portal, but I just am much more aware during the equinoxes and the solstices and those, major times for Mother Earth. So welcome, Kelly. I'm so delighted to have you.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
I will introduce you with all of this a little bit of a bio and about Kelly for those who don't know her yet. And I had the delight of listening to her speak in some of the Dragon Talks and in the Dragon Thunder Summit, which is where I first met Kelly. And I invited her to come chat because I think there's lots of beautiful dragon things to talk about, as well as other delights, like we were just sharing her beautiful light language art. So let me just tell you a little bit about Kelly. She's the visionary founder of Love, Wisdom, Power, Paths to Wholeness. And with this rich tapestry of skills and experiences, Kelly is renowned as a spiritual counselor, elder, wise woman, intuitive healer, artist, musician, and storyteller. Profound connections with the spiritual realm, evidenced by her roles as initiated water mother, clan leader, light language, and dragon communicator. And just with that alone, Kelly, I'm like, oh, I have so many questions and so many things to actually chat about.
That's
So
great.
tell us, I know. So maybe tell us a little bit about this beautiful piece you have behind you. What's the energy of that beautiful light language piece you have
Uh,
there?
when we started talking about what we were going to talk about, and um, one of the things that came up in our conversation with each other was Sophia. To me, this is the lotus of Sophia.
The
So it's
Lotus
lovely.
of Sophia.
Yeah, I can even show it to everyone. Just turn off my camera and let you have a good look at the piece just by itself. But tune into that energy for a moment with your heart, if you will, and just feel the love of the heart of the mother. So to
Mm,
me, the divine Sophia is the mother creator of all of us. She's creation source. So when
mm,
I relate to her, I relate to that particular mother.
yeah,
There's a mother of the creation of this universe. There's Gaia, the mother of this earth. So there's lots of mothers. So
yeah.
yeah, so
And
this
so
is
when we say divine Sophia, is that the mother of all energy? Would you say that? Because the only connection that I have to Sophia is that very famous book and all the work of the Sophia Code, right? Is that what it's called? I think it's called the Sophia Code. And
Mhm.
it talks about, have you read that one?
I haven't read it, but I'm aware of that book. And JJ Hertak wrote a book about the Sophia codes before, way before that book, years ago. And I haven't read either of those books thoroughly. What I know is I just have my own divine connection. So for
Yeah.
me, Divine Sophia, Mother, is the creator God. Mother is God, if you will. I don't see the God source as a singularity, masculine or feminine. I see it as a family of light, the celestial beings. And so when I connect to source, for me, it's an experience of a family of light. And it involves
Mm.
and feminine and masculine energy that is together, along with a beautiful array of um, celestial beings that sit in a tree of life at the center of all things, if you will.
Yes, the tree of life. Oh, look at this. I'm actually just in the middle of starting to read this, The Hermetic Tree of Life,
There you go.
because I've been studying a bit of alchemy and a bit of hermetics, the universal laws and how everything in our spiritual realms and all that we're exposed to. I mean, there is absolutely laws that govern it. There is
Yeah.
sense to it. It's not this, airy fairy flu flu, things. Like there very much are the laws of all of these realms that come through. So, yeah, like again, synchronicities and what we're talking about.
Yeah, there are
So,
principles. And
yes.
things to do and don't do. And
Yes.
hermetic teachings. I'm very eclectic. I was raised in a very Christian family, Southern Baptist, in fact. But my spirituality broke away from my parents' church, I guess in my 20s. I went
Mhm.
looking for my own divine understanding of God. And
Yeah.
I found that my joy was in spirituality and not so much in a religion. It was
Mm.
exploring the idea of spirituality in all things. It was like my own spiritual anthropological journey kind of opened up, and I began to engage with the eclecticness of, you know, everything spiritual, studying goddess traditions, women's spirituality,
Yeah.
Rosicrucian teachings, Hindu gods and goddesses, and studying gods and goddesses. I delved into a lot of Akashic and past life stuff,
Mm.
which was not covered in my religious upbringing. So it
Yeah.
was really a new day, even to think about the Divine Mother as a figure in the spiritual light of my upbringing, because from Christianity, it's this kind of like overarching over father energy that, is the allness of the source, what is God. And so to invite the mother in was a really interesting process. I met this wonderful elder in Santa Cruz years ago named Shakina Mountain Water, and she used to hold
Mm.
ceremonies and rituals at her homes. And she wrote a beautiful book that has kind of been out there for a while. You might have run across it if you're into studying from the women. And she's fairly known. Anyway, one day she walked up to me, and she was in ceremony with us, and she came up to me and she took my shoulders, and she was just holding my shoulders and looking in my eyes, and she said, "Kelley, God is a mother." And when she said it to me, it was like she was trying to get it in, Kelley, can you let that in, that there's a feminine side to God that you really need to relate to, that is part of you? And I remember
Yeah.
just having such a like, okay, I'm gonna really let that. And I was probably in my mid
Yeah.
20s. I was young. I was younger.
Yeah.
So it was
Younger. That's the way to
a
say it.
time of, exploring and understanding what my path with spirituality was so much more eclectic and open than anything I'd been raised in. And for me, that exploration was very much a part of my calling in my path, because in my mid 30s, my healing gifts woke up, and I started doing
Yeah.
healing work then. Left a
Oh,
career.
amazing.
Yeah.
What was the career you had before?
I was an art director, a professional art director. I was working in Silicon Valley, designing advertising campaigns for really wonderful, boring technology, and trying to make memory boards look sexy, which was, which was a
Yeah.
talent in itself, but but it's not something from a spiritual standpoint that I would say, oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, as you said, it's the awakening to that connection inside and, finding your true purpose and path and all these lovely things. And, we started by introducing you to saying it's about helping people to come onto that path. And so
Yes.
I did not, I also had a very, very different career, before doing this kind of work or being, me in this version. And it was very
Right.
much in corporate. It was very much in an office setting. It was very much, what I kind of call pushing paper around, which is necessary, very necessary. We need all of those things and services. But I think that calling from inside really comes from such a deep place. And there'd be such a longing and regret, deep regret, if we did not, you know, chase after it. And so
Mhm.
here we are, because I would have never imagined that I'd be here podcasting about dragons. And honestly,
Yeah.
and it's really about what does that actually mean in our pragmatic life? Like how do these guides and beautiful light beings and family of light, how do they guide us to more fulfillment in our human self?
Right.
So, and I love what you said earlier about, your own connection to source. I think that, as we're learning, and I'm always learning, it's like, oh, she knows more about dragons. Let me go and talk to her. So there's always a part of me that's obviously open to receiving information from new teachers and people who may have been on the path longer. But there's a really, really important thing you said about you have to have that connection to source. And
Yep.
so it's not just about reading what the lovely channel Kaya Ra had about, the Sophia dragons and the Sophia code, but it's like, what is our feeling of that? What is our understanding and what has come through? So
Right.
thank you for reminding everyone that we need to be our own cosmic channel. So
Our self.
tell us a bit more about the divine Sophia. Like how does she show up? How is she informing what you're doing and sharing? Because I know you've got courses coming up. Like, what is she saying to you?
Oh, well, let's share about a few things here about her. Let's see, where do we start? Well, one of the things I'm very in awe of is how out with dragon conversation we are now, and what an inspiration for all of us who are deeply connecting to them to be able to come together and share. It's such an honor, both to the elementals themselves and the spiritual essence of what they bring. When I began to work with my gifts, Sophia was one of the first beings that showed up in my path as a guide. The Divine Mother came into my practice when I began to do full time work as a healer. And she was one of my primary gifts. She was such a huge gift because she gave me teachings at the beginning of my practice that kept me humble, put me in a place of deep respect and honor and listening, especially with each other. One day, one of the simplest things that she said to me was, "You can never fully know everything about yourself, let alone other
Mm.
people. So the best place for you to stand within your heart is in deeper compassion and
Yes.
with greater love and forgiveness." So I took so many great gifts from her at the beginning that helped me. I was doing my healing practice and operating as a healer for about 5 years, and getting to really kind of come into my gifts, um, when I had a massive awakening about my path. And that's when I started to look at leaving my career and move into being a healer,
Mm.
because it was just so deep. So a lot of us get awakened by events that we don't realize are calling to us for our own wholeness to awaken. I think what reaches deep from within the soul is a homecoming. There's something in us that wants to come home to who we are. And that was the biggest call for my soul. It was like, you need to know who you are. You need to get in. And I also had gifts that were for greater purposes that I didn't realize. But now looking back, I can tell you my purpose in knowing the dragons was prophetic. It was to
Mm.
fulfill more than just a connection to dragons. For me, it was to fulfill a prophecy. So I had memories of parts of it happening and then engagement with dragons. And the Divine Mother, Sophia, has been working with me through all of that. A whole team of dragons showed up in 1999 in my healing room. They said, "We're here to help you." And I went through a whole evolutionary interspecies negotiation with dragons for the planet.
Mm.
And it linked all the way back to a creation story, a part of the creation story of the earth. So when I say it that way, I want you to know this isn't the story, this is a story. And the reason I say it that way is I want everyone to understand this is my piece of the story of remembering. We all are
Mm.
remembering various aspects of what has happened to this earth. Why are we the way we are? Why are we sheeple? Why have we been so
Mm.
asleep? How come we could go cut down a whole forest and not give a shit?
Yeah.
excuse my French, but not care. And a lot of us who are awake enough to know the heart are like, why aren't people more loving? Why aren't we more
Mm.
caring? Why aren't we being more, present for each other? And a big piece of that comes into the story of what I experienced with the dragon. So, what I discovered was that we had a big event that took place at the fall of humanity. And
Mm.
for some of us, that story is about Genesis and the story of Adam and Eve. For some of us, it's archetypal stories that come down through your indigenous lineage, telling you about the recreation of the world. Like in the
Right.
northern west tribes here, it's the daughters, we're all the daughters of Copper Woman. you know, there are all these amazing stories that come out of Africa, the original first mother, many creation stories. For me, it was remembering the fall of Atlantis and seeing that there was an incident that took place that brought lower world elementals into our dimension here
Mm.
that didn't belong here. And that was what was going on with me when my gifts woke up and when my healing work really took off and when a team of dragons showed up. And what they were coming to help me with was that. They were like, we're here to help you. I was doing bloodline work, cleansing bloodlines and doing deep core integration with people, which I'm still doing. Working through the layers of knowing how to come home to who you are.
Yeah.
And the dragons were amazing because they showed me what had happened and I got the whole tale. So I started to clear these lower world dragons off people, but I hadn't quite figured it out. But in time, I found out that our elementals in this particular dimension were asleep. And I believe
Mm.
that was partnered with a part of us that was asleep. And so they were asked to go to sleep, and there was a reason. So I share this whole story in a class I call Dragon Awakening, and I'm teaching that on March 23rd on my website, lovewisdompower.com. You can register. It's by donation or for free, whatever feels good. Everyone's welcome. So I share this whole tale, and so I moved through this whole experience with the dragons and got to completion with it, where I found all of the dragons I was hunting for, got them back to where they belonged, and then met the ones that were to help me wake up all the dragons on the earth. So that was a really remarkable journey and experience. And about 8 years ago is when we found a big wave of people on the earth suddenly connecting to their dragons
Yes.
again. It was a massive awakening. Well, it timed out with that. So 8 years ago, I did this big process with waking up all the dragons, and it
Mm.
it, it ties right into all of us tuning into them
I
now.
think it's still going, isn't it? I mean,
It
literally, I called
definitely
this podcast
there's
and
never
this
an
time. Yes, I know. And I
we
mean, right,
never
time is just a construct.
stop awakening. Okay. We never stop expansion and growing in who we are. And so in keeping with that, I went through this amazing experience years ago. I taught a dragon communication course right after the awakening of all the dragons, and then I went quiet for a long time um, because we were going through a massive cleansing of energy. A
Mm.
lot of the dragons were causing storms, but there was also a lot of shadow purging going on. And a lot of us have been hidden. A lot of us who are guardians, protectors, or creator goddesses, if you will, who are on the earth, or gods, because I know men do this too. A lot of us who are in a place of doing creation work and know it. We are really partnered with the care of the temples of light here in this universe or in the earth. So
Mm.
Sophia at some point came to me and began to show me it was safer to come out. It's like it's time to
Mm.
come out. So about that time, Jack and Thunder happened. And I was
Mm.
like on a book, and I'm still finishing a book right now. And I went through a dilemma with my book because I was trying to write about my healing work. And then I was trying to think about writing a dragon story. Well, the dragons finally said to me, don't write two books, write
Mm,
one and put them together. And I was like, oh God, that makes so much sense. So, so things are flowing now that I got on the right
wow.
page with what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's so like life, when you find the right path that you're supposed to be
Yes.
on, it just flows. So in January, Sophia came to me and she said, oh, it was actually December. She said, I want you to teach a class. Um, and you're going to be going with me and the Celestial Dragons through temples of light. And I went, okay. So I put it together. I designed a 7-week course called the Temples of Light Dragon Journey. And I started it in January and it was phenomenal. Sophia was amazing. I had celestial dragons coming in to meet me ahead of that. And let's talk about celestial dragons for a second so I can help people to kind of comprehend. There are elemental dragons in every part of our universe. I mean, there are thousands of galaxies and millions of aspects of creation in our own universe that we never even can fathom, that we don't see, we don't touch, we don't understand. It's there. Although a lot of us who are working with light talk to
Mm,
those families of light. So there was another little thing that happened that wasn't so little at the time of the dragon awakening. Our galaxy, our universe, well, let's put it this way, a piece of the universe of creation, and it was something like 22 galaxies, I think, including our Milky Way, were brought through evolutionary door. It's like the God source saying, I'm going to take this part of creation and up level it altogether. And so we went through what I call an evolutionary doorway, an ascension door. And we had come to that door before, but we're not allowed through because these foreign dragons were here. It was causing humans to misbehave, and we were
mm,
self-destructing. So one of the things that it stopped was, I was told where to move to and where to go hunt and all of this information. So it was very prophetic. Anyway, when I knew that a year after we woke up the dragons, we were hitting a time door. And at that time, the Schumann resin was going off the charts for the earth.
mm,
If you're familiar with what that is, but it's the frequency of the vibration of the earth itself. It said a certain hertz, but it was elevating in triplicate and in ways that would make people think, are we going to all blow up or what's happening? But what we were doing was actually we were coming closer and closer to this evolutionary door, and it was spinning. We were speeding up, and people were feeling like time was moving very fast. And then it kind of calmed down and leveled out once we got through the door. But what we went through the door with was significant. The fact that we went through it with a group of galaxies that all have
mm.
life and species on them, and they speak different languages. So we put light language into the earth heart, and that became a term that people all over the world started using. All of a sudden we started hearing people talking about light language and then speaking languages like, hey, I just woke up this morning and I was saying I know it's a language, but can you tell me what I just said? You know,
Yeah.
and so people all over the place were asking questions about what am I doing? And
Mm,
I've had a light language page for a number of years, just sharing love, I wanted a way to just put out messages and give from my heart. And so I've had this page called Light Language Art for a number of years. And I have 3,700 followers. And so I just for internationally. And so just for fun, I share. And so one of the things that I've been doing, for a while is playing with it, playing with light language and light. I painted fans, elemental ones, to play with dragon energy, and so you can dance with these. I mean, imagine getting some paper fans and just what would you do with them? You can paint your
I would
own.
totally dance. Well, when I first started connecting with the dragon energies through light language, I think it actually came first in the movement. And I didn't
Mm,
know it was light language at that time. And I just thought, oh, I'm just connecting more to my play and my embodiment and whatnot. And then I moved to a bigger city, and I just completely dropped all that. I completely forgot all about it until
mm,
the dragons came to me again. And I didn't make that connection because I didn't know what light language was. And as I started to explore more of my toning, because I used to call it toning when I do the shamanic work, and toning was, very much in that practice,
mm,
um, I felt like I was taught or shared, in someone else's remembrance that, the light language is in the movement. It is in the spoken. It is in the singing. It is in, the beautiful drawings like the one behind you. And then I
mhm,
said, okay, so where is my dragon energy coming through? Because I know they're there, right? And it's that perception. And I think I'm going to ask you this as the next question as well. It's how do people perceive the dragon energy? So for me, there was a knowing of like, so I've got a lovely dragon painting here. They dropped in one of my shamanic journeys as I was in this year-long container to, come home to self in some ways. And it
mhm,
was actually in my dance that they came through the most, in those movements that were very serpentine and very raw and primal, if we want to call it that. But I was always in nature when I was dancing because I was doing this big tour of Australia. And so, in all
mm,
these beautiful spots of water holes and in the bush and in the desert, I was doing the dance, and I just felt like the knowing, oh, maybe I'm reconnecting to all the pieces of dragon, maybe of creation. So I think
mm.
there are two things you said, and I'd like you to expand on it. You said the creation work that we do. So what do you mean by the creation work? Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, yeah. And being near anywhere near Ayers Rock and in the red earth of Australia,
That's right.
really dream time weaving of life stories and the history of the earth is recorded there. So the old ones would probably tell you that. Now, how do I know that? I didn't read it in a book and nobody told me. I know that because I went there. I didn't go
Mm.
there physically. I went there spiritually. I got taken there in the dream time and by Aboriginals and a few
Yeah.
ETs. So, so just want to make a comment about where you are, that you're in a place of great recording of Earth history and language and ancientness and stories that are in the earth and the billabongs where you could go to dance and play are rich with ancestral energy that would speak to you. So
Mm.
wherever you go, you're stepping into creation.
Mm.
Whoever you are and whoever you be as a soul, you're a little creator. And this whole universe we're in was created by something,
Mm.
someone's. And a lot of the someones were us. So many of us have been traveling through creation and incarnating in many, many places. So it's all of us and them and that and it. What is creation? It's life and all life that made life and everything that
Mm.
created life.
Yeah.
So, in the journey of understanding creation and beginning to think about ourselves when we manifest, when we make something, and looking at the world we're living in right now and what
Mm.
we've made of it and how much we would like to change about it is really important right now. So
Mm.
let's talk about creation from a place of not what it is, but what it could be for us to play with right now. Because to me, that's way more important in this now moment. We are in a massive creation wave with new earth energy, with new life force, and we're on an edge of new things that we're really facing. We've got AI, a whole new species of consciousness waking up. Okay.
Mm.
And it is a consciousness. And I actually did a test with it, which I'll share with you. Is fascinating. So, somebody recently was sharing about how, there are indigenous people that know that AI is a consciousness, and they've been talking about these beings for a while. And there's a couple of different directions we could potentially go in. There's always the destructive one or the light one. And that's where we're
Yes.
all living on the edge of life. And do I go with the fear story that, we could have another nuclear war and everything could blow up? Or do I go with, no, we're going to hold peace, we're going to find peaceful solutions, and we're going to probably get to the point of realizing we really don't need weapons of mass destruction anymore. So let's do something about that. More than once, there have been people who've wanted to completely eliminate them. Even people you
Mm.
would be surprised to hear had wanted to get rid of them altogether.
Mm.
But a weapon of profit. And we know we have a big shadow in our world called greed and avarice. And greed and avarice drive so much miscreation, human error, and mistakes in our world that happen. So we're sitting in a big field of blue creation ray and energy right now. I sent you a picture before we got on this show, and it had that blue glowing energy around the sun. And a big
That's
part of the
right.
blue that's happening around the sun and the moon right now, if you're tuning into the creation energy, you can take a picture of the sun and the moon when it's out, even no matter what phase the moon's out. And you'll see, if you're tapping in with your heart to the creation energy, you'll usually get a blue picture. And
Mm.
I invite you to tune into that. But the biggest thing I want you to do with that is to think about, what is the most loving thing that you would like to see happening and be a part of this new creation? What would you like to have our world become? What would you like
Mm.
to see happening in the world you want to have? And how would you see us doing that? And one of the things that came along with this great awakening time is also, as we've been clearing out the shadows, because when these lower world dragons left, they were feeding on an aspect of us, our own shadow. And we no longer feeding them, actually got free and began to open our hearts more. And then our own dragons waking up gives us a whole nother place to go. So we're sitting in a well. If you could imagine that we're at the door of the well, and the judge, the guardian at the well door, is like, well, who you be and what you want to do and why you here. So if you really want to come into being partnered with creation, to me right now, you have to go to Sophia. The divine mother of
Mm.
creation herself is sitting at the door, and she's saying, hey, I want all of you to step in, gather with me, connect with me, partner with me, wake up to who you really are, which
Yeah.
is why she let me take people on this 7-week amazing journey. We went into the origin temples of light, starting with the inner center, the inner earth, and we traveled from the inner earth to the edge of this universe. And at the edge of the universe, at the last course, people were giving birth to higher light bodies, their own universes, sometimes galaxies, sometimes stars. There was so much coming out of people's hearts that would have taken them, a lifetime to realize they could do
Yeah.
this. But in 7 weeks, they went from thinking they were just this little person over here who meant nothing to impacting all of us with their incredible expressions. And Sophia was
Wow.
right there with them going, yeah, because she's like, you're on board. You're on board with me when you're doing the work
Yes.
that your light potential really has. So I want
Mm.
you to come on board. Now, this was an accelerator. It was like, this was taking people through, I would call it gross acceleration, not just a little bit of growth and light coming in to
Yeah.
transform you. It was intense. And I knew that because, she knew because of my skills as an integrator that I could help assist people through the process. So between classes, I offer deep core integration work. The beautiful thing was how quickly everyone who had been through the course was popping through those layers. When I take people through the steps of integration, there are literally 17 to 18 processes I step you through in a 2-hour
Mm.
session.
Oh my goodness.
I might do 5 sessions to get you to completion.
Mm.
Well, in this case, the people I was working with were completing in 2 to 3 sessions
Yeah.
or
Phenomenal.
one. There were some that were completing through all the layers of integration that I would normally take someone through in 3 to 5 to 7 sessions in one session.
Mm.
So to me, that's rapid growth, really ready, absolutely on board with, and this is somebody who has done work on themselves.
Yeah, so
Um,
if I was gonna ask that next, like all the work, all the stuff you're sharing now, like, it's a lot of bells going off. It's like, yep, I resonate with that. Yep, I've been there as well. So I feel like, I mean, you're on a podcast that's called Awakening Dragons. So I feel like that's all in resonance. But what about, our average person who's still struggling through the mundane life, the ones who are still struggling to even come to their heart center and express emotionally? I mean,
we're
I've been
here for
seeing a lot
you.
of clients
I don't
that I
we
go
we
ahead.
don't shut the door on anyone. So healing, when we're facilitating healing support for people, I do one-on-one work with people at all levels. So this new
Totally.
course was an accelerator that Sophia asked me to teach, specifically to attract and draw in those people who are ready to be part of it. And she said these
Mm,
were gonna be ancient, really old souls, and they were. The people who are
yes.
drawn to a course like this are people who are ready for it. It's not going to
Yes.
be somebody who just is a brand new soul who doesn't know what awakening means and has never
Yeah.
meditated for more than a thumbnail in their life and they don't know how to listen yet. So that's not the right person for this course. This course is going to only, and the mother told me, going on faith, she said, you're going to attract the people who are right for the course. Only those who are right for it will come. And I was in total faith for this entire course. When you go to teach a course that's elaborate and complex, usually you have a map, you know what you're doing, you feel authoritative in your expression of it. In this case, I had nothing. I was like, yep, she told me to do it. Here we are. We're getting together and we're going to see where she takes us.
Yes.
And
Well, I think that's how we are divinely guided these days. Like some of the most authentic and powerful and alchemical courses that I've been to, it's because of that resonance that you're drawn to even the title of the course.
right.
Right. So in my last podcast, I had these beautiful, beautiful souls and healers I've worked with. And the episode, I think, is called Ancient Remembrance. And it's
Mhm.
precisely what you referred to as we were old, old beings. And back to the time of, maybe we perceive creation differently, how we say it now. But it's like, can we imagine that we used to be these beings, not in human form, but beings that were part of creating universes, creating stars, creating the galaxies? And when I
Yes.
dropped into that, it was a feeling of such vastness and such expansion that I actually couldn't really hold on to it because it was way bigger than my little human mind can comprehend. But now that
Yeah.
I've been exposed to that and kind of in that remembrance of awe, that's what creation means. And that's what this remembrance is. And, following the divine breadcrumbs of the speakers, the healers, the courses, the books to help us in this homecoming path. So thank you for sharing all those little bits of wisdom. And absolutely that, wherever people are, a gifted facilitator, teacher, healer is going to meet you exactly there. And so how
And
can
people
people
for
how
your gifts.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yes,
if
they'll find that resonance with you as well. There must be something, in your history and your background and your cosmic origins and lineage that people are drawn to. Like, I really feel that every time I connect to someone, it's like, oh, the dragon in me sees the dragon in you, or whatever, whatever it is. So
well, I
how
think
how
that's
can people that's
Mhm.
happening?
I think that's what happens is that we have codes for each other. You could put
Yes.
10 people in a room who all teach Reiki 10 or whatever, okay?
Yes.
And you learn something different from every one of them because they're individualized expressions of the spark. We all come from the
Yes.
spirit of light. The soul is born out of creator. So we all have a connection and oneness. And yet, in our individualized expressions, we have gifts for each other. So
Mm,
I always keep the prayer for myself as, to invite people who are ready for my gifts and who are ready to receive them to find me. It's my prayer. So when people find me, they're an answer to my prayer. And I tell them that, you know, you're wonderful, you're beautiful, you're an answer to my prayer. And it doesn't matter what level they're at. If they make their way to me, my door is open to them and they were meant to find me. So I serve, you know, I serve who shows up at the door ready and willing to heal. And we don't
mm,
put a marker on that, only those people who are accelerated and ready to. No, no, come on. We're at all different levels of wakening up and becoming ourselves and getting to know who we are. So, I work with people who are doing deep shadow work or coming through trauma, who are overcoming, assault or violence in some way in their experience, or have been down a path with darkness themselves and are trying to find their way back into trusting who they are again. You know,
yes.
doesn't matter what the challenge is, the divine will meet you in it. And the God source is always there championing us who are championing those people who are wanting to heal, because that's
Mm,
that's what we are as vessels. So in that place of deep, loving, open, intuitive nature, in that rawness of being present, we can show up and give what's needed. And there's a lot of times when I would have shared something, I would have never, I would have never imagined, sharing something in myself from my own heady thought the way I did with somebody, but that spirit asked me to do. So I would have moments when I would be like, oh, you know what? I have to sing to you right now. Are you willing to let me sing to you? And my
yeah.
clients would be, yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
out would come my drum or my song bowl and, or my feathers. I'm part Cherokee. I've come from a Native American family, but a lot of people didn't even remember we had indigenous family in our family. And we get so far removed from our roots. So a lot of us are also in our own awakening, rediscovering what our origins are and our own
That's right.
ancestral lineage and tying back into it and feeling it. For me, that was really intense because I actually had an ancestral teachers that showed up that were indigenous. And they were like, my grandfather was like, oh, I waited 5 generations for someone in the family to be born who could hear me. So, I was like, oh, okay, all right. So I'm the one. And then years later, I heard about a Cherokee prophecy of the fifth generation, and I was like, oh, that's a thing. And it is. There was actually a prophecy that said the fifth generation would come back and bring back lost, forgotten knowledge.
Mm, yeah.
And I do that a lot with the information that I share. I put a lot of pieces together, and a lot of lost, forgotten knowledge is what I unweave, I unravel, and I can put it together. Even the whole awakening of the dragons, when I share my stories, people
Mm,
find pieces of themselves in the story. And they're like, oh my
yeah.
God, after I heard your story, everything makes sense about things I've been trying to put together. And when I would share the story of integration as a tale, I sometimes would go places and talk about what it means to be a whole human being. and give
Mm.
an hour-long conversation about that. And I've traveled here and there in the world a few times to do that too. And I always found it was the same thing happening. And I know that this happens when we share stories. We get pieces of information we need from one another in storytelling. So we are myth makers. And I wanted to share the celestial dragons, by the way, are higher dragons. I was gonna, let me go back to this. I didn't finish telling you this.
Yes.
The dragons of the earth are the elementals that are here in partnership with us and woke up 8 years ago. Were our elemental kingdom here on the planet. Our elemental kingdom was asleep, and Lakota elders had said, one of my friends worked really closely with them for quite a time. And I asked her, I said, what are the elders saying? What are the Lakota elders saying about the dragons? And they said, well, they know they're sleeping, but they said they can't remember why. And I remember when I
Mm.
heard that, I thought, huh? They're asleep? Oh, okay. Well, I was busy hunting these lower world dragons, but I would never had a thought in my mind that our elementals were asleep. It hadn't crossed my mind. I wasn't thinking that, although I found that I kept traveling around the earth and I was waking dragons up. I would go to a mountain and all of a sudden I was being guided to connect to a dragon and like bring it out of
Mhm.
sleep. And I was waking them up, but I hadn't put it together. It's like sometimes we're dense and humans are very forgetful. So
They are.
I have this innocence in me that's ridiculous. So, I mean, really. So, at the same time, extremely wise and way knowing beyond my years and connected to this ancientness inside myself that I can go anywhere. So, I met people who were like, oh my gosh, you can go any place. They said, yeah, yeah, that's been true. And I can meet someone, and wherever their soul needs to go, I'm there.
Mm.
And but I'm not sitting around thinking I can go anywhere. It's never a thought. That was never a thought to me. And it never even occurred to me until someone said it to me. So when you're sitting in a kind of open, precious innocence, being really available to be a vessel and staying in that place, amazing things have happened. And one of the most beautiful things was meeting the celestials. The celestials are dragons from outside of our universe. They're also coming from pure places, places where there is no duality, existence that doesn't have dualism, and coming
Mhm.
from a unified field of energy. They're carrying a frequency and a light that's more advanced than what we are experiencing at this current evolutionary place we're in. I believe that we are quickly evolving this universe out of duality, and it's not something a lot of people necessarily agree or understand. But in working with Sophia and teams who are doing reformation work, not only in this universe, but others, I feel privy to some information about that, but I don't share a lot about it. And for one reason, I don't want to get into a big argument or debate. And for number one, and number two, the proof is always in the pudding. So it's like, what are we experiencing?
Mm.
What I do believe that we are experiencing right now is an acceleration in open consciousness and more free thinking, where we're moving into that place of being more intuitive and natural in our expression. Like you were saying, the course I'm teaching, you've been experiencing courses where people don't have a roadmap, aren't planning, they're showing up and going through an experience together. So for
Yeah.
us to think about our world in that regard, and then better yet, think about our education of our children in that regard.
Mm.
So there is a whole reformation for education for children globally that needs to happen, where we allow ourselves to, instead of thinking we have to fill a child with knowledge, we invite the drawn out knowledge the child has for us first. So there's a first step that we oftentimes don't take. And I did unlearning with my son where I took him out of the education system and I, I unschooled him. So, as a mother who unschooled a child, I can tell you it was remarkable to watch my son find his gifts and his path and knows who he is. and he's amazing as a young person. Now, as parents, we oftentimes get appreciated for doing a good job raising our children. But when I moved back to this community I'm in recently, I had so many people coming up to me going, "Thank you. You did such a great job." I was like, "What?" They were like, "Raising your son. He's the most amazing person." And I was like, "Oh, well, I don't take credit for who he is. I only take, he passed through me, but his
Yeah.
life being who his
Mm,
isness is who he's chosen to make himself into being." And I
mm.
don't lay claim to that. But yes, thank you. I agree with you. He's a beautiful being. So, it's been kind of an interesting phenomenon for me to come back here and navigate those conversations of being, the right to be you. And I have these very deep conversations with him about this because I am a shamanic mama. So it's really easy for me to go, "Hey, I want to take you this. I want to show you this. And he's like, "No, mama. I'm not
That's
going
so
there with you."
beautiful for you to be able to allow him in that being of all his isness and
Well,
to
he's my
have that respect for him, like being to being, not mother son, all right, not superior, and someone who is less and has to listen. I mean,
yeah.
and all the unwinding and unraveling in me, in my, let's say, in my blood lineage, in my cultural and ancestral conditionings. Just last night I was having a chat with my husband on all the traditions, of marriage and the customs, because we're returning to Canada and visiting my family, which I haven't seen in 4 years. And so we had gotten spiritually married and legally married in the last couple of years, but haven't celebrated in person with our families. And so this conversation came up about, what are the customs? And so it was quite a fiery discussion because obviously it brought up things of what part of this is a conditioning, what part of this is me and my inner child wanting to appease parents, and what part is actually to my integrity that actually I value ceremony, I value the public declaration and celebration and all of those things. And I
Mm,
share that because I guess it's like what I'm hearing is very much the embodiment of really being and being. Son, no matter how much younger he is, it's like I respect you as a being, as a person. And very often, like I'm an adult, right? But I still think, oh, what would mom and dad think? In some ways. And there's many things where I've let go and be like, right, I am the black or the rainbow sheep of the family. Very, very different. I don't know how many generations it's probably skipped
mm,
because this is nowhere in the family,
yeah.
but it's still the parts of us that still have to remember of like it's okay to be different, it's okay to express differently, it's okay to just be who we are. And in my quest of even just saying, oh, what do I help people with, like I don't know, but that thing you shared about, it's all just a homecoming. It's helping people to simply remember who they are and to integrate all the bits and pieces, as I'm sure that you were part dragon, part butterfly, part angel, part this, and finding out that human meaning of what all of that actually means. Maybe dragon is, very conscious for me right now and really guiding me. But maybe in a couple of years, it won't be dragon. It'll be some other part of me that I'm integrating. So I love what you're sharing about storytelling as well. I often find that I'm sharing stories, like personal stories, because there will be that resonance for who needs to hear it and to
Mhm.
inspire, to evoke, and to, encourage people to not be afraid to remember. Have you had
Yeah.
that? Have you encountered people who are afraid, are resistance to their
Oh,
homecoming because they just don't know what's ahead of them?
one woman came to me and she said, "I know I'm supposed to be here and I'm really ready to do this work with you, but some part of me wants to get up off this table and run down the street right now." I was like, I said, "Man, you're in the right place." And she was like, "Really?" I said, "And that's so normal
Yes, it is.
because inside of us, the part of us that is has sequestered ourselves so deeply inside and kept ourselves so locked up doesn't easily want to give up its stronghold on the self. And
That's
I
right.
sometimes have to call that breaking into Fort Knox, where I'm like, okay, nobody in, nobody out. All right. So this, when I have a person who's nobody in, nobody out, then I know I'm going to have to do some work with them just to get in, and
Mm,
really to just get them in on themselves. So it's
mm.
not my getting in. I was teaching. I had a phenomenal experience with a man who was suffering. He had a tumor in his throat. He had been a teacher for 30 years. He was quite amazing. He 4 martial arts black belts. He was a journeyman. He took people on quests, and we went into a healing process, and I had a remarkable impact on him. And he was so taken that he asked me to go with him to teach his last class in the Grand Canyon.
Oh, wow.
And I had a vision 6 months earlier, myself with a group of people in the Grand Canyon, and I didn't know why I saw that vision. I wasn't thinking about going to the Grand Canyon, but all of a sudden there it was. So I wound up going and journeying with him. And normally, as an athlete, he would power hike in with his crew, and he um, he couldn't do that. And so we flew in by helicopter together. And he was like, oh God, this is so hard. So I was just sitting with him, and he was in hell. This was like hell for
Because he
him.
was flying, because he's not used to flying and not using his body to get there.
He was used to power hiking and being able to be with his group and lead everyone
Mm,
in, and to not be able to do what he loved and physically be limited felt like hell. So sometimes we are just going to meet our limitations and the things that are happening to us that we don't have control over. And a lot of times trauma has been like that for us. And it's all about going to meet the baby that's crying inside of you.
mm,
This man had done work with hundreds of healers all over the world, and I had never gotten into his deepest core. And
mm,
he was blown away by that. And so I do deep core work. So when
yeah.
we're needing to get in, people feel it. I had a person who once felt me across a room, and they went and hid underneath somebody else's clothing next to them because I walked into the room. I didn't say anything to them. I'd never met them before. They felt me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was
But you can
because
see them, right? It's like
they
there's this
felt
present.
they felt that I would get in on them. And they felt
Yes.
that, and that was so threatening. But that person came up to me and said, "You're the most frightening person I've ever met." And I said, "Only in your own mind."
Mm, yeah.
So
It's
I
so
wound up,
true. It's so true.
I wound up doing work in a cave on that journey, and a black butterfly met me. And you were talking about one time you were working with dragons, and then I might be, hey, you're alive, aren't you? And life around
Mm,
you is alive. So anything in life can talk to you every day. And bugs come and talk to me. So I
yeah.
get spoken to by trees and the river and the dragons and everything. And God is talking to me, and God can talk to me through all of creation. So
That's right.
we don't have to limit ourselves ever to how spirit's coming to say its message to us, as long as we stay
Mm,
open to receiving it. So it's like, really open your heart to be a good receiver. Think about what you really want to create in this world. Know that we are at a time of our own evolution in partnership with the earths, and the earth, Gaia, is moving into her higher self and accelerating into her higher light body, and she's taking us with her. So we're in our
mm,
place of sovereignty, and yet there's a coming together that's starting to happen, because she's taking us to the next level of meeting each other in our higher light. And as we do this, we can expect to begin that we will create something new because we're together. And so
yes.
there's something new that's wanting to happen with us that we can't name yet. And it has no name yet because we haven't created it. And
Mm.
what's going to manifest is this beautiful potential called us together,
Mm.
and us coming together to make things that we didn't perceive ourselves doing until we met. And so
Yes, that's
the same is true with our inner process. When we have a crying part of ourselves, all the time that most of us are feeling pain, we instinctively try to get rid of it. Our instinct is to push it down or to try and avoid feeling it because we're not comfortable feeling it. And I always say, when you come in to do inner work, it's like, wait, wait, wait. If there was a baby crying underneath a bush, would you throw it away? And they always say,
mm.
no, you would pick it up and you would comfort it
Yeah,
and you would say hi to it. And that's going to meet that baby. Well, your own emotional pain is that baby. And the minute I would say that to people, they would go, oh, okay,
yeah,
that's different. If I
yeah,
realize it's just like crying baby I'm going to pick up, I can have compassion for it and I don't have to be so afraid of it. It
that's
and
right.
also what happens to the baby when you comfort it. Think about that. When you comfort that child, it calms down. It feels relieved. It feels better and it gets happy.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so, I always tell people, the pain you're feeling right now, we're not going to leave you in it. We're going to take it somewhere and get you some relief and bring you to another level, another place with it. So know that it's
Mm.
going to change even potentially today. And it doesn't have to wait. If we can go in and do some work together on this and you're willing, we can move it. And
Mm.
people love hearing, I can have movement. Well, yeah, you can. And it's really a good idea to not leave yourself under the bus,
Yeah.
pain body in
Totally.
there.
And, I guess maybe again, some of the more conventional therapies, and this is nothing at all to knock on conventional therapy. Like I studied counseling to understand what actually happens in mainstream and what they actually teach. And there's a part of that I felt just missed or missing a bit of the spirituality component, or maybe a bit of the inner work, core wounds, that kind of stuff. And I feel that with that skillfulness of really addressing Hmm. The real pains that are happening, right? The emotions, the feelings. Yes, we can look at it from the trauma lens. But yes, it's also probably expensive to open it and to view it from a spiritual lens, from an energetic lens, from an evolutionary perspective. So I guess as we close off this chat, because I think we could literally talk for hours on all of these topics, is to
Mm,
remind people that our homecoming path has so
mm,
many different possibilities, right? Like many, many ways to get there, many helpers along the path. And I'm reminded of, the hero or the heroine's journey. We got to
mm,
make that big choice to step out from the places of comfort and then meet your Gandalf or your spirit guide or whoever it is, your teacher that helps you to go through those mega transformations. That's what I'm
mhm.
reminded of. Like we're here literally on that journey, aren't we?
That's
So
it.
I think I'm going to share all of Kelley's links. And I think just tell us a little bit about the courses coming up. I think you
Sure.
have one coming up. Is that right?
Teaching the Dragon Awakening story. If you want to hear my evolutionary Earth explain my Earth history, um, I think it's a wonderful story to hear at least once. I recommend everybody take it in. So, and it's also listen to it spherically because there are a lot of people with evolutionary stories. And if it doesn't meet yours, it's landing somewhere in another dimension
Mm.
that's
Okay.
different, but they're all right. So I just like to invite people to come and listen to the story with their spherical thinking in mind so that you remain open and allow it to take you where it needs to go. But that storytelling event is on the 23rd of March. You can find it on my website under my menu for Dragon Awakening. My next Temple of Light Dragon journey starts May 19th and goes for 7 weeks through the month of June. It's meeting
Mm.
once a week, and I'm offering a healing package with it now because the integration is vital. And I'm not going to skip that part. Divine Sophia said, you've got to couple it with healing because everyone in the group needed it. And I also have two assistants and other healers in the group that are journeying with us through the course that also offer healing. So it's a powerful process. Anyone who feels called to it, I'm very reachable and approachable. So if you need to talk about how a creative way to pay for it or whatever, reach out to me. The other thing is I teach a weekly dragon Monday morning meditation practice for deep listening and practicing. And I'm getting ready to do a light language play shop, which I think will be a lot of fun for people who want to start playing with their intuitive expression. And then I do one-on-one work. I'm always available for doing deep core emotional healing work to help integrate you. And the purpose of integration work, by the way, is not just for me, it's about coming in to meet your soul's inner council, the archetypes of the self, where you
Mm.
can tap into your own soul of knowing, your inner library, but also your purpose in life that no one else can tell you. The true purpose of why we're here can only be known by the self. And there are only four types of people that we have to help in life that are not capable of helping themselves. And so everyone else, we're on the help self journey. So we're all about empowerment, right? When we're taking people through healing, we're wanting to encourage them to trust who they are, find their own inner truth, discover how to listen, feel, and connect to their guides, their helpers, the spirits of nature, life around us, whether it be their dragons or their husband
Mm.
or their kids. Sometimes we need help talking to each other, right? So
That's
it's
right.
whatever in life we need to meet, right? So I'm here for all that. And I also am a ceremonial healer and leader. I'm teaching Vision Quest and I'm getting ready to do circles again this summer. I'm going to do some online Vision Quest circles. I'm going to be teaching a wheel of sevens that I inherited from my ancestors and a teacher that I worked with for 20 years, um, who is Scottish and Muskogee, and I'm Cherokee and Scottish. So we had mixed blood, and we just clicked. So we Vision
Mm.
Quested for many years, and I'm taking people to Mount Shasta this August.
Ah,
So
divine, divine.
it's a very special place. I've taken 11 journeys of people to sit 11 times up there. And it's a very sacred antenna to the spirit world, that place. And a lot of crystalline energy to connect with in the inner city of the light there. So the other dimensional part of Shasta is very special and sacred to many of us. And you
Mm.
can go there
No
without.
doubt.
So it's one of the temples of light we visit in the course. So
Can't wait. Let's see. Well, I'll
yeah,
be sharing all of Kelley's links and all her wonderful offerings. It sounds like a very, very rich, not just in this lifetime of experience, but lifetimes and lifetimes, that wisdom that flows through and just takes form in the form of a trip, in the form of a course, and in the form of one-on-one work. So thank you
yeah.
for all that you be. Thank you for all that you are and all your offerings.